All right, so just picking up from where we spoke last time with Susanna and I, we talked about thriving and where we're at this stage in our lives and how we look at success and growing from that and to best prepare not only ourselves, but for those who may be listening to this. And so Susanna is here with me today. You want to say hello?
Hi, everyone.
And today we have two special guests with us. So we have John Fashal and Ali.
Thank you for having us, guys.
So just to give a bit of context, a little background information, what we've been doing is really chatting with people who in my classes have been quite successful. And part of that is to understand, how did you best prepare yourself, not just in terms of success, but how are you setting yourself up to thrive in this stage of your life?
Exactly.
And so what we'll do is first we'll start off with you, John Fashal. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? How did you come to, university and what's up?
So myself, John Fashal, I'm coming from southern part of India, which is a place where entrepreneurship is a big thing, because everyone right after school, they think about starting a business because either the family owns a business or it's more of like going outside of your comfort zone and then getting into business as a whole. So that's why I chose to study in a country where entrepreneurship is also a thing, and then it's well developed to have that sort of infrastructure. So that's why I chose the UK and then London as a city. And that's how I ended up in the business university in London.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so Ali, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Exactly. So thanks so much for having me, first of all. And the way my background started was I was born and raised in Dubai, and I always had a business mindset since no one in my family has ever owned a business. So I thought that maybe I could break the chain, be the first person. So that is the reason why I didn't go for the traditional medicine, engineering, law degree. I was like, let's go for business. I did my foundation year in Dubai and then came to UK to complete my undergrad. So I'm a final year student as well right now. And thinking about the future, my studies have taught me a lot. And I think it's very important to thrive. You need to do some personal research outside your university so you can always think outside the box, always be creative. And I'm thinking about what I should do in the next 10 years so I can take these skill sets and hopefully one day it's going to come in handy.
I mean, that's an interesting point that you made, Ali, because I know with some of the students that I've taught, as being an entrepreneurship and sustainability professor, entrepreneurship sometimes is frowned upon. And so you made a comment there with regard to you're not doing the traditional medicine or engineering, like your family wanted you to do. Has there been tension there between you and your family?
Fortunately, in my case, my parents have a very modern approach. So it wasn't typically my parents, it was mostly people outside. So my background is obviously I'm from Pakistan, and a lot of my cousins and a lot of my uncles and aunties, everyone has basically supported me. But from what I've seen, my cousin, it's always strictly been either medicine, law, or engineer. But I'm basically, I wouldn't say I'm the black sheep of the family, but I'm saying I'm kind of like the outlier in this case because I tried to do something creative, something outside the box. And once the money starts coming in and once they start seeing the success out of entrepreneurship, I think everyone will be in your team then. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry. I was just thinking out loud.
No, I mean, building off of that and John Fashal, I know you come from an entrepreneurial family. And so what does it mean for you to, grow up in that atmosphere, in that, risk averse way of looking at things to now? I mean, because you're coming quite a long way to London, how has that impacted you in your day-to-day and your approach to school?
Exactly. I would say I could have remained in my own country and then did education in a business university. We have so many infrastructures because I think Southern India is more literate in terms of any degrees. So I could have done that, but I felt the same way that I'll be more comfortable remaining within what I have and then remaining with all the connections I have. So I thought, starting from scratch and then learning everything from top down, especially not only university, I would say when I get after university is also part of the whole exposure which I get. So that's the reason why I came to another country, and then the reason why I picked London specifically. I would say I like the British culture a lot. So old money here and there.
So I don't know if Susanna has that same opinion. No, and Susanna, again, why don't we chat a little bit about, because you're coming from Czechia, and why would you do that? I mean, it's odd for me because I'm from Canada. I'm coming across the pond as well, but why? What motivated you to come to London?
So our universities are very much about theory. They don't give you any practical education whatsoever. It's all about, oh, you have to learn this. You have to know the books front to back, exactly how business is done, the strategy and all of that. But you can't actually take it and do something with it because they don't teach you how to do that. They don't teach you anything above and beyond the books that you get. So that was my main reason why I wanted to go to the UK, because I was just done with learning theory all the time. Like, literally my whole high school was 8 to 4 every single day. Yet to this day, I see myself using the knowledge, just maybe playing, things like what's the name of the game?
Which game?
Like, I would refer to AZ Quiz, but you don't have this equivalent. So basically, if you're playing, I mean, like, like a knowledge game. So you're trying,
Like as in game theory?
yeah, but there's a specific. You would go like a pub quiz.
Sure, pub quiz.
Yeah, exactly.
Or for those in the rest of England, it's a pub quiz. But yeah.
So basically, what I'm trying to say is that most of my knowledge from high school is relevant to me when I'm around people who are asking these questions, but it's not relevant to me in my normal daily life as what I learn in university, or like my normal daily life when it comes to work and professionalism and stuff like that.
And that's interesting. Let me cut in there, because the last time our listeners heard us talk, you were an undergrad.
Ah, yes. Now I'm doing an MBA.
So how's that transition been?
It's been okay. First of all, my MBA barely just started. I'm finishing my first assignment, so there's not much I can say about it. But the transition has been all right, as I've been working full-time my whole third year of undergrad. And now my MBA is related to my job role, which is the same. So I know what I'm doing. It's not like I've started a job role and an MBA related to it. It's just the MBA. And now I'm just reflecting on whatever I've been doing as communications coordinator. So it hasn't been such a big change.
Not yet, at least something that you haven't realized yet until we get
exactly.
deeper and further into that MBA. But you raise an interesting point in working. And I know a lot of our students are working as they're going through school. And part of that, when we're looking at thriving, when we're not talking about surviving here, where we're just making it day to day, we're talking about thriving, being effective, being, somebody that's contributing at very high levels at least at the educational level. Now, let me ask Ali and Jean-Fashal, are either of you working at the moment?
Yes, so I'm also working at a football club as a stadium tour host. So it's like a casual part-time job, good money on the side, also get to learn about communication skills, how to manage teams, and hopefully the aim is to take that skill sets into the next endeavors then.
Yep. Even I do a part-time job, which is a retail assistant, and I work in a Primark, which is one of the fast fashion. And then I was much interested in fast fashion brands because I did some niche sort of a fashion thing back home. So yeah, that sparked interest. And then from year one, I'm still working as a part-time retail assistant.
I have a question for you, John. Can I? So you've been saying that you went to London because the environment here for business is similar to what you have in India. And you know how often people say that if you want to start a business, it's better for you to actually go and do it instead of trying to learn about it, because you will gain way more experience actually doing it. Did you find what you were looking for, or do you think it might be better for you to stay in India around people who actually have businesses and learn from them instead of doing a course in London?
I would say actually when I first came to the UK, it was way off than I expected because it's my first time leaving a country, leaving all the comfort zone. So yeah, first day went by that, getting all the mental health perfect, getting all the new environments perfect. But in terms of the business stuff, you said there is more exposure in London, I would say, because you have top-rated companies. And then if you want to start off with the job market to get enough experience and then start your own hustle, I would say London is perfect compared to southern India or the northern parts of India, because India is mainly a hub for manufacturing and then not basically about providing more services. So if you want to learn a bit of experience in the business structure, I would say London would be perfect because of what's different that's happening in London compared to India.
Okay, amazing. Thanks.
It's interesting because all three of us are essentially immigrants sitting here. All four of us, or you're all immigrants here sitting. But I'm at a different stage. I mean, I'm 38 years old. Like when I moved here, I don't have any family here. I mean, you have a sister that's here. You guys don't have anybody here?
No, not anyone.
No,
So again, I came here with a family and I had that bedrock of support. But it's interesting because I look at it as an international student, and I did my undergraduate in the States. I did my MBA in the States. I've always lived away from home, so I understand my coping mechanisms. But let me ask both of you, in fact, all three of you, what ways or what have you done to help with that emotional support? Because living in a new country, especially if English isn't your first language, can be very scary. So, I mean, both of you are in your third year, you're in your MBA. If you had a first-year international student sitting here, what would you advise them on what the most important, or not necessarily the most important, but what do you need to do in order to create that emotional support? How do you build that? Because part of entrepreneurship is coping, right, and adaptability. What would you recommend if we had a first-year or a couple of first-year students here that are international, that are new to this country? What can they do to better prepare themselves for that? Because we feel, lost at times. We feel homesick at times. What have you found that's been helpful for you guys?
I would say, I will call you at that, because number one, which I've learned from the whole 3 years, is that discipline is the number one thing. Because at first when I came, the environment was so it felt a bit like depression because you're leaving everything back home, and then also because you're not in your comfort zone, I think I went a bit more lazy in terms of not going to classes that often, and then having a lot of homesicknesses. So I think I coped up with that being disciplined in terms of I was basically getting out a lot. Let it be university, let it be all the events, let it be getting connected to people, like-minded people, and then also the number one reason I went for a job is also to remove that laziness so that your time is being productive.
But is it laziness, or is it the structure and the people you're surrounding yourself? So instead of being on your own, you're surrounding yourself with people.
Yep, I would agree with that. Surrounding yourself with people was the number one thing. I mean, as I said, I basically connected with like-minded people, which means...
So how did you find them, though? Like, you're coming from a whole new country. How did you find these people?
I would say I was lucky the first time I found Ali, who was at the exact same situation, because he left family, he was in his comfort zone, and then we both were at the same situation, because firstly we met at class, and then the whole week, the next week, I didn't show up to class, and then the week after I saw him, and I was like, okay, did you go to class the week before? He was like, no. And I was like, oh, I was sitting at home. I couldn't show up. I'm just getting adapted to all the stuff, and I was okay. This guy has a similar experience to me. Okay, let me get connected. So
it's interesting that you're using each other as accountability. Because if we're talking about thriving, remember, thriving is a big part of success and moving beyond just doing okay. And that support system was important for you, it sounds like, for getting those, that accountability, those which then translate into hopefully better grades, right?
Exactly.
Ali, what are your thoughts on that?
So based on your question about giving advice to people, first-year students, I would have a similar approach where I would tell them that, look, these next 3 years, it's either going to make you or it's going to break you. It might sound controversial, but the decisions they make now, that's going to set them up for the rest of their lives. Now, for example, when I first came here, I had no idea. Of course, I've been to London a few times, but living in a country, of course, is very different compared to visiting it for holidays and stuff. So I was living here, didn't know much about the culture, but then I remember it was John. He just walked in, and it was the way he carried himself. It was the aura he gave off. I was looking at everyone in the class. I was scanning everyone. I'm like, can I connect to that guy? Can I connect to this person? And then when I saw him, I was like, okay, let me speak to this person. And rest is history. And I've noticed one thing, that no matter what bad habits you do, or sometimes when you go into this pessimistic stage where you don't believe in yourself and you think that things are coming down, then the other person will motivate you that you have the competency to thrive in this opportunity, in this situation. So I think having that support network is very important, and that's how we have helped each other. And any other person that is also in university, make sure you're with the right person, because if you're going to be with the network, you're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with. Now, if you're going to hang out with people that provide no value, then you're going to become like them in the end. But if you're going to hang out with other people that do provide value, whether it's in terms of your goals, fitness-wise, money-wise, education-wise, sooner enough, you're going to see you'll be thriving as well. So that's the best advice I can give in regards to that.
How did you find them?
How did I find them? So it was actually pretty simple that when we were in class, I would exhibit these characteristics. So simple things such as when the teacher would ask questions, I would answer them the way I'm supposed to, the way that reflects my intellectual competency. And when other students would do that, I'd be like, okay, there's group assignments coming up. Let me connect to this guy, because of course, smart people should be with smart people at the end. And when we did those group assignments, I think that also allowed us to have that cushion to grow together, not just as academic friends, but outside that. And that's where opportunities arise. And that's how we met you, Dr. Matthew. We saw the talent in you, you saw the talent in us, and now we met Susanna as well. So I think things are really going through a good curve at this point. And if someone wants to thrive, I think they should take the same direction in building those connections.
Well, it's a very well put answer. And let me take it beyond that. Did demographics matter to the people that you connected with?
From what I've seen, it has never crossed my mind. Now, it's funny you actually mentioned this, because I have a couple of cousins that were born and raised in London, and every time something goes wrong, they play the card that, oh, it's because of my ethnicity, or it's because I'm not a first English speaker. You know what my opinion is? I don't actually believe in that. I think these are just excuses, and I think that anyone can succeed in this world. It just comes up to what talent you have in this world, what hard work you put, and the competency of always putting in effort, regardless of the odds being stacked against you. So I never even thought about demographics. John P. never thought about demographics. And I think that is something that has never allowed us to have that victim mentality that would hold us back in thriving in university.
I like this.
Now, Susanna, you have a bit of a different story in that you had family that actually came to the same school, didn't they?
Yes. So I moved here knowing exactly what area I'm going to live in, how the university looks, how they work. My sister worked at the Students' Union of that university. So I knew exactly what I'm doing, how to get here. I knew the language. I learned English mainly from Netflix while I was in my teenage years. And yeah, I didn't have difficulty or the idea of, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to do this because of language barrier, or that I'm coming from a foreign country. That wasn't my issue at all. I think my biggest issues in my first year was making friends. Actually, my first year was during COVID time, so that was at home. So my second year, when I was finally in London, was all about making friends and making connections and not feeling lonely and trying not to survive, but actually thrive. But I'm not sure I managed to do that, but it was the goal.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. And that's just it, having that goal in mind, that idea in mind, and what you want to accomplish. And I do, because you raise a very good point there in terms of challenges, because, we've talked about what helps us to accomplish that. But let's look at, the struggle side of it now, and what some of the challenges are in order to thrive.
Okay, so for me personally, it was just feeling lonely. Let's say I came from high school of people where you're put in one room every single day for 4 years, so you're forced to make friends by proximity, right? And then I came to university, which was a completely different experience than what it's supposed to be due to COVID. So first year was online. I don't know if you had the same experience, but doing breakout rooms and doing group work was, sorry, pain in my ass. Like, it was horrible. People are not replying to you. You talk to like one person from 150 to 100 people who are actually getting back to you. So first year was lonely. Luckily, I was still in my country around my family and my friends, so I didn't feel like it didn't actually influence me that much. But then the second year was 50-50. So doing lectures online, doing lectures online and then seminars in person, which meant seminars are supposed to be like 30 people, 5 show up. So now you're around 5 people who barely speak to you. And again, you spend another year not knowing the people who are studying with you. You can't really build the connections. You can't find the friends and share the same struggle when it comes to coursework and assignments. And this finally fixed in my third year. And I think here goes my advice as well. When you go to university, even if it sounds pointless, go and join a society, go and hang out after your lectures in communal spaces. You'll find friends. There will always be someone who's in the same shoes as you are. So that's what I did. I started hanging out more in uni. I worked here, so I was here quite a lot. But then I built a great group of friends, exactly, people with the same mindset, people who started their own businesses by now. Like, it was amazing. I loved hanging out with them. We all suffered through our coursework together. It was fun. It was valuable. And that helped me thrive in my third year compared to the first 2 years of my university.
Oh, so that's that. So I had a question. So in your first year, of course, since you were online and you were at your home as well, was there any sort of difficulty? Because if I'm honest with myself, when I used to do online studies, there's been a lot of cases where you're seeing the class online, but then you're like seeing it from your bed and you just woke up as well. So in terms of academics, was it hard to concentrate and complete your studies because of that? Or did you still manage to thrive in that regard?
Good question. Basically, I was excited to start my course, right? So let's say the first, I would want to see the first month. I guess it was more like 2 to 3 weeks. I was very much into it. I'm like, oh my God, I am top of my notes. I know exactly what I'm doing. I love this. It was exactly what it wasn't exactly what I ever wanted, but it was the best I could get. And then I slowly discovered that if I'm not in classes, nothing will happen to me. I can see the presentations. Also, a lot of lecturers were literally just saying what's in the presentation. There was no additional value to it. So at some point, I'm like, okay, I can do better than this. And I was hanging out with friends. I was going to work, and then I would just do the coursework and the assignments based on the presentations. So my first year, due to being it online, I actually did not go to classes later on. And I still managed, like, I graduated with first class. I don't think it really influenced me. But I know what you mean. Like, my focus was not good. It wasn't what it should have been. It wasn't the same as then going to lectures, especially with Matthew and other lecturers. So yeah.
I find your comment fascinating because, and let me tell you my experience at your age. I was very much the same. Not to say that I'm highly intelligent, but fairly intelligent, right? And I found that lack of challenge, the lack of from professors not challenging me enough, that I ended up doing all of these extracurricular activities. So unlike you guys, where you're seeking these activities to feel included in your community, I did it as a way of academic advancement. I knew that I did it in order to do my resume. I knew that I needed to do that in order to show the complexity and diversity of work that I can do. I never built groups in order to feel at home, so to speak. And but that's an anomaly, right? Like, again, I've taken the emotional intelligence, the bar on Q test, and test exceptionally high in all areas except for one, which is building meaningful relationships with people and letting people in. Now, that's growing up with a childhood of always playing the highest levels of sports, highest levels of academics, highest levels of expectation. So you talk about alienation in university. I grew up always having to perform the best. And if I wasn't doing the best, that would impact my negative well-being, right? And when I'm looking at this, the lack of challenge by professors, which I had the same, my first 2 years were no different than high school in Canada. And so I'm filling and occupying my time with all of these other events, the president of the business society, the president are doing this. And I was on a golf scholarship doing that. I ended up playing for the football team or soccer back at home, just to occupy my time. Bringing it back to it, and when we're talking about thriving, I was occupying my time with things that I knew that were going to build my resume in order to build my career. But I was always extrinsically motivated, which is ironic because now as a professor, I'm trying to teach all of you, do intrinsic things, do things that motivate your happiness, that motivate you internally. And the extrinsic, such as salary, titles, all of this will come with it. So it's interesting to hear your side of it. Susanna's looking at me funny. She's like, something's coming to her.
Why are you saying it as if I'm doing it differently? I mean, a lot of...
No, not at all. I'm saying that I see a lot of myself in you and your experience.
And then a lot of my internships and me looking for jobs and me trying to do more than other people in uni was based on, I want this, I want to be employable. Oh my God.
Employable.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. After I graduate, like I want to give people more than, here's my first class degree. Mm-hmm. So that was it. And then the friends and the thriving came with it.
Absolutely. And yeah, like to clarify, yeah, I see a lot of myself in you. Like I had very parallel, I was bored, and you occupy, it just happened to work out.
Let me ask you one more question. Was the drive to do more, because otherwise you would feel not well, coming from you or from people around you, from your parents?
Oh, it's definitely, I blame my parents for I shouldn't say that. No, it's a very deep question. So looking at that, I think it was ingrained at a very young age to always perform. I was representing my country in ice hockey at one point. I've always performed at extremely high levels. And so, again, university was not a choice for me. I was going to university because my mother told me I was going to university, which, reframes things. And that upbringing informs who I am today. We're doing this podcast. We do other things I mean, we don't have to do this, but this is fun. But again, a part of this is self-motivation in hopes of thriving in careers, right? And especially at your age, especially at my age. But that's a much deeper discussion in terms of how, I mean, it's the nature-nurture event.
So, I would actually bridge the gap between what you said you do it and then what different that we do it from. I've seen people in university because I live next to the university. So when I have days off, I see people in university. In my exact same class, I see people who are sitting at the front all alone. They are doing really good academic-wise, which is good. As you said, you need to build yourself. That's also a part of university. You build your CV, you build your job career, you build your personal career, which is good. Extrinsic motivation, intrinsic, everything is good. But what we did, me, myself, and also I believe Ali too, we had the same goal, but our intention was to do it together and also bringing that home feeling in terms of getting in the right environment and also going for the same target. So the reason I'm saying that is that I've seen that exact student still in third year who is all alone. I don't see going together, but probably that's also another way of doing it. But I would say, that's like, I just bridge the gap between both the different, types of doing it.
And that's, and you hit the nail on the head there, because, and this is an interesting part to this topic, which is thriving, because what does thriving mean to you? Does it mean academic success? Does it mean building the most friends? Does it mean, and if you asked younger me, it was academics. If you ask me now as your professor, I would tell you that, in $1.50 in late fees, you could get the same education at the library. However, you are here to build your network. You're here to build these relationships. You're here to learn on how to network with people. So I think part of thriving, I could be wrong on this, but I think part of thriving is experiencing the university as a whole, which for me is a very scary thing at this particular place, which I'm not going to identify the name, but you have instances where students really gravitate to one thing, like you explained, academics, focus on that, but then neglect, I don't want to say the human side, but the social side of it. And then I have opposite, like today, I have a class of 40 students, 2 show up. What are the other 38 doing? I have no idea. Roundabout idea, right? But what is, because it's a loaded question, what is thriving?
I think it's a balance of being successful when it comes to your academic, your professional life, and then having friends who can do it alongside you, and being able to find time for your family and your friends and yourself, and do things that are your hobbies, but not necessarily things that are related to your career. Like if you're into dancing, go for a dance class and have time for this and enjoy it, and don't feel guilty about taking this time for yourself. I feel like thriving is finding balance within all of these means and knowing what brings you happiness next to the hard work you're putting into yourself.
I would agree with Susanna, because I think it's like a pie chart. And then there's different sections to it.
So we know that you're a very quants person now. Everything's numbers on charts. So we know where Jean-Philippe is coming from.
As a business student, I might be wrong, but I think the brain is like a pie chart. It's completely sectioned out, and you just need to fill all the sections to get, 100% complete.
Mm-hmm.
If that's your way.
It's an interesting way of looking at it by numbers.
I was also thinking about it, but another thought that also came in my mind is that the more pieces of pies there are in the chart, the more responsibilities and fulfillments you have to require. So would you guys say that makes it harder to achieve your goals and harder to win? Because if some things you're falling behind in, you're going to feel like, oh no, I'm not winning. So what do you think is your best advice in terms of that?
Personally, so the greatest advice I could give you right now is the goalposts keep changing. There is no such thing as a soccer pitch, right? Your goals constantly change. They constantly evolve. It is a never-ending process. It is something that is always adapting, evolving, and for good reason. You as a person will change. I hope you do, because if you're not, then I'm not doing my job, right? And the other part, and you guys had a prime example there. So Jean-Philippe is looking at the world in terms of charts, in terms of numbers, quantitatively. Whereas Susanna is looking at the world at more of a narrative, at more of a story of something that evolves and transpires. And what's beautiful about those two mindsets is the recognition and understanding that we all have different approaches to life. And I think the thing that we've really, discussed today is finding our group, finding our team, finding our tribe, finding our people that help us grow and adapt and change. Because the other beautiful thing that Susanna said is thriving is not just about hitting certain expectations. It's also about trying. As an entrepreneurship and sustainability professor, that's all I hope for is trying new things. because then at the end of the day, you can say that, you know what, I tried this, I didn't really like it, but at least now you know, right? Whereas if you really keep yourself in a corridor, you keep yourself in one lane, you're not exposing yourself, and it's okay to try. University, especially at an undergraduate level, is your time to test your limitations, to test your way of thinking, to test how you approach certain situations, because this is the time to do it. Once you get into career, you don't get these opportunities or the option to redo it. If I have a job and I need this done, ABC, and you don't perform that job, there's consequences when it comes to business ownership or working for another organization, right? So again, for me, thriving especially at an undergraduate level, because it might change at a master's level, right? But at an undergraduate level, it's coming to the institution, it's networking with people, it's trying new things. Because, and I implore you to talk to your parents about it if they went to schools or et cetera. But, would they, if given the opportunity, go back to school? And I bet you most of them would say absolutely.
This is actually a valid point. Like, if the readers are business students specifically, or entrepreneurs, or want to be entrepreneurs, I would say as an entrepreneur, it's not just about making billions a year. I would say it's all about adding more value to the actual people in the world. You need to try, as you said, you need to try, you need to fail, you need to succeed and fail and try again. So, it's all that stages. As I said, the charts work here, it's ups and downs, and then, it just swishes up again. That's how it works.
Exactly. And to add on to that, it's a very good thing, because as you may have seen in the movies, they show that, okay, something is happening, you fail once, and then you succeed. But real life doesn't work like that. In real life, we fail more times than we succeed. But it's about how many times we can take those hits and keep moving forward. And it's the same in university. If you think about this, me and John P. were having a hard time with that business side hustle, which we were doing apart from university. And of course, the people we were working with were not honest and stuff. So we wanted your advice. We came to you for your advice. And then after that, we started discussing about the next thing we could do together. And that's how you said that our goals evolved and the goalpost basically changed, and it was a better goalpost. And then from there, we're hearing this podcast right now, and Susanna is also over here. So it's like, basically, the thing is that whether an opportunity is big or whether an opportunity is small, we should always go for that opportunity, because that's where we'll learn more about ourselves and be able to develop our skill sets to continue to thrive and evolve to the next stage in every single year.
I agree. And keep in mind, even the bad experiences build you as a person, exactly, even more than the good experiences. And I wanted to add on, you were talking about, I had in mind like the journey and getting to your goals, that even if you have goals and you succeed, doesn't mean you're going to be happy with it. Everyone always says it's all about the journey. And I think it actually is. Like, you have to be happy with what you're doing on a daily basis for you to be happy with a goal. An example, I graduated first class, as I mentioned before. And I'm like, okay, that's it. This is what I've been doing for the past 3 years. Like, this was my goal. I was happy about it for like 5 minutes. And then I have to find something else to move towards too, without actually enjoying how I got there. So keep that in mind. Like, money and everything is amazing, but if you cannot enjoy your everyday things that you do, coffee with friends or just hanging out or family, listening to music, dancing, sport, nothing will actually make you happy, and you will just go and try to chase another goal after goal and after goal.
Let me ask you, because a light bulb kind of went off for me there. For those who are not, because you're a very reflective person, which is what I love about you, how, like, walk somebody through. So somebody who's not, because I at your age was not a very reflective person. I was a very target oriented. Once I accomplished something, I moved on to the next. And it's something I've been working on even now, is being more reflective. If you have the insight, so to speak, walk us through how you reflect. How do you take time because I find today is just so busy and we're doing so much stuff that to actually reflect and appreciate, because I have my, wife and other people that will say, you know what, you've accomplished a lot, you've done a lot. Meanwhile, I'm so close and thick to it that I don't reflect. How do you reflect? What's your process?
I journal.
Oh, that's cool. Digitally or analog?
Analog.
Analog, writing it down. I love it.
I tried doing it on my laptop because it's way faster, obviously, than writing. But I didn't like it having it on my notes. It's not the same as having an actual journal. But other than that, I'm convinced, as many people these days, I'm sure, that I have ADHD and I always think about everything all the time. So I reflect on things on a daily basis, like give me 5 minutes of me not being able to talk to someone or like focus on specific topic, and I can go years and years back in what I did or randomly remember, oh my God, I did this, or this is how I felt. And then I also have quite a lot of anxiety for like not even like minor things in my life. And then I always try to reflect and analyze why am I feeling the way I'm feeling, which usually helps because then I'm like, oh, this is actually nothing. I don't have to be anxious about it, which then leads to analyzing everything I've done before. So let's say my biggest thing is I'm 23. I feel like I'm failing life just because of social media, because people around me are not as successful as the people I see on my phone screen, right? But whenever I open my phone and TikTok and I see the millionaires and billionaires who are even younger, not billionaires, millionaires most likely, who are younger than I am, I'm like, oh, I've done nothing. But then I reflect on what I've done, what I managed to do. I would compare myself to people who are actually around me, who I actually talk to. And I'm like, oh, this wasn't bad. And then I would think about how it made me feel. Was it worth it? Wasn't it worth it? What did it teach me? But I mainly just reflect during doing normal daily tasks like laundry or cooking. It's literally...
I agree with you 1,000%.
I always talk to my therapist about this, how I think a lot and how I feel like I have to do things all the time. And she's like, oh, just sit down and just chill, just think. You can listen to music or you can draw or, I don't know, knit or something, but it gives you the time to think. And then with thinking and with taking rest comes creativity, and just everything goes together. I am a certified yoga teacher, so spirituality and all this well-being comes with that. And I did it when I was very, very young. I started when I was 16. I did my yoga teacher training when I was 17. So that had a lot to do with how I learned to reflect as well. I almost forgot about that. So it's just, I've done a lot of things, and those things taught me new things every single time. And
no, that's interesting. So, I mean, you did have some sort of structure or guidance to learning and understanding how to reflect.
Exactly. One more thing, having people who can do the same and who can communicate and who can analyze things with you and think in a similar way to you, and you can actually go deeply with them about a certain issue or what annoys you, what annoys them, what are the world problems, helps so much. I have people around me, mainly men, who cannot communicate about anything, and then you can see how they're stressed about something, but they cannot put into words what it is. Having people who can do this is so helpful because it will help you open up more. I do it quite often. I talk about myself quite a lot, and I can notice how people open up to me as well. And they're like, suddenly, oh, this happened to me and that happened to me. And we have great conversations because I moved from small talk to deep talk quite quickly.
No, that's fantastic. And again, it's that openness and communication that not only helps with thriving success in university, but if we're talking about business, which we're all here business students, like communication is incredibly important for business success. So is emotional well-being, and being able to open yourself and talk about feelings. Oh, put men in a room and talk about feelings. It never happens. I mean, it's getting much better, which I want to ask you too. When you're looking at do you reflect? If you reflect, how do you do it?
So it's actually a very good question because me and John P is basically
Not John P, you. I want to know Ali. Ali. All right. How does Ali reflect? How does Ali cope with things? How does he rationalize things?
There we go. So basically the approach I have is that every time something happens, I decide to go in a quiet room. Rather than just speaking to someone about it, I first speak to myself. I have this huge habit, like sometimes if you guys ever see me walking home or anything like that, you see that this guy is actually speaking to himself. You might think I'm crazy for a second over there.
It's only when you get a response that it starts to be a bit crazy. It's okay to talk to yourself, but if you started getting answers, then we're in trouble.
Then we're in trouble. It hasn't happened yet, so I think we're on the right boat so far.
Are you religious though?
So yes, I am a Muslim, but I think when it comes to religion, I can definitely be doing better in terms of the following the regulations and the rules. So always aiming to be better, but I wouldn't class myself as a typical person to follow because I also have a long way to go myself in that regard. So
Doesn't it help you with reflection?
I think it does because when you pray and when you ask, because I thoroughly believe in God and I think He's the best of all planners. So when you pray at the end, that's actually an ask Allah for help and ask Him that, see, this is something that's happening. And you have that self-belief that it can happen and you put your self-trust in God. I think things can go a long way. So that is something that you brought up. That also helps me a lot as well in terms of reflection and when things are going hard in your life as well.
Before we get to you, John, how do you reflect?
Ah,
I guess you don't
Question.
believe in God.
I don't. I believe in Mother Nature. So for those of you who actually care whatsoever, but no, I reflect. Yeah, I don't pray at all. So I reflect through cooking, renovations, but I'm not great at it. And I get frustrated. And when I was younger, I was a much angrier kid, which is probably why I did so well at ice hockey and lacrosse and other intensive sports, so to speak. But I am not the best with reflection, but to reflect, I do renovate houses. I do things with my hands. I do gardening. A little bit difficult now in London where I'm nowhere near a garden, but that is me time. That's time to diffuse. That's time to reflect and process information. Now, I will say that in my MBA, so kind of where you're at now, I developed insomnia. And a big part of that is I did not know how to process the day's information. I didn't know, and I was always panicked because the university that I was at, you had to maintain an 80% average. So there was no getting seconds or thirds or fourths or whatever the system is here in the UK, but I was not able to do that. So again, I did not know how to process information. I was not good at it. Developed insomnia, which had a knock-on effect. Still managed to pass, but from that, I learned. I've tried meditation. I've tried Tai Chi. I have tried just about everything. But honestly, it's a hodgepodge of a lot of things. But it comes down to when I do things with my hands, it allows me to A, be creative, but B, also turn my brain off in order to let my subconscious process information, which then again at some point comes forward. And I've done a lot of work because I have other health conditions. Part of it is aquagenic pruritus. So my skin's hypersensitive to water, which also has mast cell activation syndrome. And so I get very itchy when I touch water, etc. Part of that too, though, is dietary. And I've learned, so instead of taking a pill, because I'm against pills if you can help it, but part of when I'm in pain, I meditate. I block. And again, I'm not thinking about it. I've learned to clear my mind, and I can control the pain through my mind. That was not an easy process. And it's still something that I work on. But the other thing that I would say to thriving is also understanding your limitations. You can only understand your limitations until you do things, right? So I know you were talking about you pray, you do yoga, you do other. It's about finding something that works for you, right? And part of that is, I think, if we circle back, is you have to try things. You have to try something that, and it's okay to fail. I've fallen on my face plenty of times on different projects and stuff that I've worked on, but for me, it's clearing my mind in order to, diffuse that or to, just let my mind rest. And the other, to bring it back to with your journaling, I always suggest, and I've told you, all of you in class, put a journal beside your bed. Don't put your phone beside your bed, but put your journal. That way you can log the information there. Because your brain, I was probably the first generation, but your generation has definitely been taught, your brain's been taught to be a computer. Take in information, store it on your memory drive, right? But the problem is the drive fills up. There's only so much you can put on that. So by journaling, and I'm a big advocate of journaling, plus I have a bit of a soft spot for paper and ink, and it's just it's so romantic, right? Versus a screen, another blue screen. But part of that process by writing it down is now your brain no longer has to worry about retaining that knowledge because you've offloaded it onto another memory card, and that memory card is a sheet of paper.
Exactly.
The amount of information we get daily is way more than it was ever before. Especially due to social media. Like, I learned so many things during the day, which I don't remember afterwards, obviously, but it's just so much. Like, hour on TikTok, and you get so much more information than you would normally do otherwise if you just hang out around people or do your job, which is usually one topic. But social media is so overwhelming.
Like information overload, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. And the problem is when we're looking at information online, how much of it is actually accurate?
That too.
Because they don't always provide the actual research behind it and stuff.
I have a nephew. Throw the phone at you. See, it's on Google. It's on the first page. Yeah, that doesn't mean that it's true.
But the information, I mean, is not necessarily just something you would want to Google or put into your normal life. It's a lot of information about other people. Let's say, get ready with me while I'll tell you how me and my boyfriend got together. And then suddenly you know how a random person and their boyfriend got together for no specific reason. And information like that.
And do you retain that knowledge?
Not really,
Because I find that fascinating if you do, because and maybe that's, again, part of my emotional intelligence where I literally turn off.
If it's
which my wife probably wants to kill me for half the time, because I will literally, no, brain's not taking that in, shut off, done.
If it's not something that's relatable to my own life, my personal life, or my friend's life, then I wouldn't remember it. As long as it is relatable to my life, then I'm like, oh, okay, I'll remember this. Maybe I will come up with it in the future when the situation similar to what I've learned in the TikTok comes up, but otherwise, no.
I'm interested to hear what the quants guy over there has to say about reflection. So do you bring out an abacus or, the calculator? How do you reflect?
I would say my chart is split into two.
Mm-hmm.
Spirituality is there. Finding peace, the inner peace, as you said, meditation also plays a good role. And trial and error, I've tried monk mode, which was a thing 2 years ago. So monk mode is where you completely cut off social media and then you even take up fasting.
I thought you were going to say like reading a book.
It's so advanced, but it worked. It worked really good. But the point where I dropped it is, especially in university as an international student, I live with a roommate, and then your roommate doesn't follow monk mode, which means you have to cut off monk mode. Yeah, that's basically. And my second hemisphere would be family. Mm-hmm. I'm well connected to family, so every day they do video calls. I mean, I think that's the good thing about like this era. I mean, you can get connected instantly.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
and that never ends either. Like I still have my mom messaging me right now. Hey, what are you doing?
That's the thing. They actually update you on stuff that's happening back home, which is good and which is bad because you at times you'll get left out of good stuff happening, and then if bad stuff happening, you're like, okay, I'm here. Don't have to worry too much about that. But yeah, that's how I basically reflect myself, especially it's family. And then I just open up, and then they open up. Yeah, it's two-way communication happens, and then, yep.
It's interesting that and I don't know if I want to go down this road, but the spirituality context of it all.
Let's go down this road, please.
I don't know if I want to, but I mean, and your spirituality is religious specific?
Both. Meditation too, just opening up.
And what religion do you follow?
Islam.
Okay, Islam. And I mean, I was born and raised Roman Catholic, like not Christian, like Roman Catholic. Like, here are the rules. Go to Sunday school. And now I prescribe more to the indigenous cultures of Canada, the Native American cultures, First Nations cultures, and it's all about harmony and the interaction of humans with the environment, not on, not in, but with, like we're together. And a big thing, because I am an entrepreneurship and sustainability professor, the big thing that I advocate, or not even advocate, and adopt from that culture is the 7-generation ideology. What we do needs to survive for the next 7 generations. So I've adopted that, and when I apply it to my life, and again, if we're talking about reflecting, a lot of what I do, although I hate to admit it, how am I going to impact others? How am I going to impact my students, your young minds that I can, mold, so to speak? Because what I say and what I do will have an impact on you. And that's something when I'm reflecting on, it's big, and maybe that could be the answer why I still haven't had kids yet. I have plenty of kids,
You have.
our brothers and sisters, etc. Right? But spirituality, I mean, that's my approach.
I would basically steer that back to university. So what I did is basically I like the rain, especially water and meditation. I mean, I think it's a thing in South India. So wherever you go to a serene resort, you have waterfalls everywhere. Even in Nestle,
Rain is important in Islam as well, right?
Yeah.
You do it and it gets accepted while it's raining.
I hear you, man. Like, it might be silly to say, I love trees.
I love
Trees. Like, when I went to South Dakota for my undergraduate and my MBA, it's so flat there, you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. Like, there's very few trees there. And if we're talking about homesickness, Mom and Dad, I love you. I wasn't so much homesick as I was tree sick. The nature and the environment. I'll be honest with you. We moved here from Atlantic Canada, where we were on the ocean. I would see eagles in my backyard. I don't get that here. I get the local neighbor yelling out the window and this person dropping bottles in their blue bin. I really miss nature.
I agree. That's my biggest thing in London. And the closest nature that kind of feels like nature is Hampstead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Hampstead Heath. We used to go there with Jack. Yeah, like nature it's a fascinating thing.
So what was it that motivated you to leave that wonderful nature and then come to London?
This is me flipping off Ali.
Just for the listeners,
Yeah.
someone showed a middle finger.
Yeah. So I lost a bet. I threw a dartboard at the map and it landed at this institution. So that's why I came here. No, that's not the truth. Actually, there's a couple things that played into it. One, I wanted to be in a big city again. I lived in some of the biggest cities in the world. I enjoy living in big cities. Ironically, I just said I miss nature. So I do this flip-flop. I'll go from major cities to then the smallest towns that you can even live in, villages, so to speak.
And you thought about finding something in between.
If you have an answer, my ears are wide open.
Okay.
Wide open. But the other motivation too is my wife happened to get into the top program in the world for what she does, which is global public health and mental well-being. So one was selfishly myself. I wanted to go back to the UK. It's been very different living here as a student because, again, I did a postgraduate research degree here, but now living as a full-fledged adult, so to speak, there's different issues. And it's not as good as where I came from, so to speak. There's good and bad. And then people, where's your favorite place of living? Because I've lived all over the world. Every place has good and bad, right? I wanted to teach at a big school, right? I wanted, ironically, if my students actually came, then that would come to fruition. But, you know, part of that is that global experience. But the other half, too, is so my wife can advance her degree, her what she wants to accomplish and how she wants to thrive within her career. But again, that's a big difference between undergraduate relationships versus lifetime commitments. Because it does take up your time.
More responsibilities at this point.
It's not even more, it's just different. Your focus shifts, right? And what you think was important back in your undergraduate times, as you get older, you start to realize that I worried and I panicked so much about these things. Meanwhile, it's very small now.
Can you give us one or two examples
of how life has shifted? Now I have a mortgage, I own a house, right? So there's the financial responsibility, whereas before, you know, I was living on student debt. So there wasn't that issue. Now that I'm married, being in a relationship with a girlfriend at the time, sure, I felt like some responsibility, but it wasn't a lifetime commitment, right? That a marriage, so to speak, does. That's not a good or bad thing. That's just a statement of fact. And I trust her to do anything, everything. Whereas back, I mean, the struggles and you don't know what's happening. You get overworked, overwhelmed. You get paranoid. Dating when you're younger is awful, you know. And I've told my wife, I said, if you die, that I'm done. Like I will get a plant, and that will be me. You know, because relationships, whether they're friendships, whether they're intimate relationships, they take time, effort, and energy. They can be very rewarding. They can be very fulfilling. And again, I had a buddy, and well, still is a buddy. And when we were going through undergraduate, he bigger gentleman, and he was always worried that he was never going to get married, never going to meet somebody. And I said, look, dude, you're going to get married before me. And he said, there's no way. And I said, not only that, you're going to have kids before me. And I was right in both instances. Yeah. You know, he's a sweetheart of a guy. And a lot of it is timing, right? What you think you need now, and this, if we're going to go back into spirituality, a lot of religions do reference this, is you think you think you need this, when in reality, you might need that. And in some religions, of course, you know, it's God that gives you this context. It's God that gives you this understanding. God that gives you this realization. And so 38-year-old me now, who's lived on 4 different continents, who's experienced a lot. I've lived more lives than most of my friends, you know. Things take your time. You need to really organize yourself. Kind of what you said earlier in what is truly important for you.
Exactly.
Right? Because the other thing that I'm going to tell you too, especially when it comes to starting a business, that nobody's going to do it for you. You have to do it yourself. And there are times where it's going to be painful. There are times that it's going to be terrible, that it's going to be bad. And I'm not trying to do the doom and gloom of this, but learn from it. And relationships fail. I would say most of my past relationships, they are great people. It was just not good timing and it didn't fit. And that's okay.
Exactly.
After hardship comes ease.
Yes,
Exactly.
for the most part. But then, I mean, you run into, so I know I said Jack earlier. So we had a dog for 10 years and he died this year. I died that day. Half of my life, like I have my wife, my dog. I'm in there somewhere. When Jack died, I lost half my life. People ask me, will I ever get another dog? I will never get another dog. I might feed a dog. I might, help that, but it'll never be the same.
Because it can't replace your...
Cannot. But you know what? I've looked at, I've never been to therapy, so to speak, but I have read a few books since in grieving and mortality and trying to rationalize this hole that I still have. Think about him every day, even still. But it's transitioned from a very negative thing to now a positive thing. Embracing the good times that we had, embracing the time that we did, that I got to share. It rings true, it's better to have loved than never loved at all, or loved and lost than never loved at all.
Is it still working though?
Oh yeah, the recording's always working. But to get back to that, it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. And how does that then relate to thriving in university? Because I've gone through this. Although I have plenty of kids that have lost somebody, family member, a parent. I taught a kid this semester that lost their mother when they were 10 or 11 years old, which is a terrible time. Like, it's one thing to lose, a parent when you're 3, 4, 5 years old. You don't really know, don't really understand. But at 10, 11, you're well aware. And so, for students, and I've helped students that have thought about suicide. I have helped students that have dealt with these other things. And communication is a big part of that. And for those people who are listening, speak to somebody. Find somebody that is open, willing to communicate, discuss, willing to listen, but do talk to somebody. Don't bottle that up. Don't internalize it, because it's not going to go well.
I don't think people actually understand how important communication is. That's why therapy is good, but you can do this with friends, you can do this with family, you can do this with strangers. You can write it down into a journal. It actually makes such a difference.
Let me ask you guys then, reflecting on all of this, because we've come quite a bit of ways, looking at the positive sides of thriving, looking at the impacts and challenges of it, then especially for John Fee and Ali, what does this mean to you then moving forward? How can you take this information? How is it going to shape who you are tomorrow?
I would say, in the end, to sum it all up, I would say, as Ali mentioned at the start of the actual podcast, that you're the sum of the 5 people that you hang around with. And I truly believe in that, because whoever is around you will actually mold you, even if you are not getting that interactive between each other. Because university, especially for a bachelor's degree, university is a place where you go minimum 4 days a week, probably all 5 days a week. So you do have an interaction with people. So selecting the actual people that you need to be interacted with will actually shape you into what you want to be. Let it be career-wise, let it be personal, in your personal life, family life. So that is crucial. And as we spoke about mental health, it is also important. You should also find according to the chart, you need to find the peace side, to, get ahead or remove all the information overloads you get these days. So yeah, reflecting yourself, taking a bit of time, even if you have a noisy roommate, just, whenever he's not there, just do something like peace. What I do, I would give you guys a tip. What I do is that I think it only works in MacBooks or iPhones. There's an option which is called background sounds. And then when you select rain, it's really good. You just close your eyes and then just read. Oh, okay. Whenever you read something, just put background noise of rain, just noise cancellation. It works.
I'd love to do that, but I'd have to pee like 5 minutes into it. Anytime I hear waterfalls or rain, I'm in trouble.
I've seen the other day a TikTok where a woman was reading in bed, and on TV she had like a nature sound, so birds and everything like that, and her husband was making fun of her, but it was such a good idea.
Anything to clear your mind.
But sometimes silence is not it's hard to sleep when it's completely silent, so some sort of noise can always clear your mind. And as far as the advice as well, Susanna actually mentioned a very good point earlier on the podcast, that it's very common for us in university to like be on social media and do these constant comparisons where we're seeing these people who have already made it in life and already succeeded in life. So the best advice for people who are like first-year students just coming to university is that comparison is the killer of joy. Everyone is going on their own race, and everyone is fighting their own battles in their own time frames, and everyone will succeed with their own different time frames depending on how they put their work in. Because there's always context behind everything. A person who's successful when they're 18 and already has everything they want, maybe they came from a rich family to begin with. So all these things matter, that don't compare yourself, and always just compare yourself to where you were 3 years ago, 5 years ago. I was watching a video on YouTube as well, and someone asked that, where do you see yourself in 5 years? The person didn't mention any names. He said, I see myself as the best version of me in 5 years. And if you ask me that 5 years later, I'll say the exact same question. So always striving to be the best version of yourself. And if there are ever any issues in life, having a good support network like we do right now is definitely helpful. As Matthew, what you said, it really touched me as well when you told me that you've helped people speak them out of suicide, speak them out of mental health issues. So it's always good, as Susanna always mentioned, that not to internalize your issues, but have that support network that can actually support these issues and make sure that it doesn't get worse.
Yeah, and like, I'm not a trained psychologist by any stretch of the means. Like, I'm available to talk to, and I hope I've always made that, available and open to you guys. It's just, if you need somebody to talk to, I'm an ear. Right?
Exactly.
Because it can be hard. That scenario can be hard to talk to your immediate network, because there could be a bit of shame to it. Could be a bit of guilt to it. I am not going to shame or guilt you either way.
Exactly.
Right. Now, one thing we haven't touched on, which is interesting, and the two kind of coincide. This is my last two things. One, what would you ask other people about thriving? Then we could pick that up on the next episode. But the thing that we haven't talked about, which is very evident in all of our lives, food, diet,
the main part.
Because part of, at least the way that I see thriving, and we've talked about that today, is that we've touched on the psychological side, the spirituality side, but we're missing two other components here: exercise. What do you do? And diet. Are you eating, double pepperoni cheese pizzas every day, or are you actually eating well? And I'm going to start with you, Susanna.
I could talk about this all day. So my relationship with food was a bit complicated throughout the years since I was like 13, 14. I had an eating disorder. Then it got better. I was eating healthy, living in London, eating healthy, but then working quite a lot. So eating the food that was available, with still having in mind to try to eat as healthy as possible. Like, I wouldn't eat fried food. That goes to this day. And it makes such a difference. How do I eat? I stopped focusing on things that I cannot eat. And let me start over. So basically what I do when it comes to food is I try to enjoy it now. Before, it was all about calories and macros and does this have enough nutrients? Am I eating enough fiber? And maybe I was putting in my body everything that I was supposed to, but then it really influenced my mind and my mental health, and then mental health and physical health, it goes hand in hand together. So right now I'm focusing on eating healthy-ish, but I'm eating enjoyable food. I don't eat food that's healthy, but I know I don't like just for the sake of eating healthy. It makes such a difference. I don't have to think about food all the time. I really just eat when I'm hungry, when I'm full. And I think my biggest advice when it comes to food is cut out the junk. It's not so hard, I promise. There's always something that's healthier and more available, and you won't miss out on it. And at some point, you won't even miss the taste. Like, I can't drink Coke now. It's just disgusting. I can't have processed bagels. Disgusting. Like, literally, my taste buds are not made for it. You'll feel so much better and find few foods that you really enjoy, but it's not fries and burgers, or try to make it in a healthier version. It doesn't even have to take so much time or so much money, but it makes such a difference. Like, food makes such a difference. Your skin, how tired you are, your mental focus, brain fog, especially if you feel like you have ADHD, or like, food is such a big thing and no one teaches it. An example, yesterday I was hanging out with some of my friends and they went to get food and they're like, oh, what do you want? And I'm like, anything that's not fried. That's literally all I said. They came in with fried food for all 6 of us. And then I'm like, okay, so they got me this food. But first, I don't eat fried food. Second, I don't actually enjoy fried food. Like, I like fries, but after fried fries, I'm like, okay, this is enough. Like, that's it. And they're like, oh, don't worry, it's good, you will like it. And no one thought about the possibility of me not eating fried food because I don't like it, but because I choose not to eat unhealthy food. Like, that wasn't the option. And then they gave me a plastic cup full of Pepsi Cola. And I'm like, oh, no, I don't drink Pepsi. And they're like, oh, really? Why? I'm like, what do you mean, why? And they're like, why? Like, do you not like it? I'm like, not really, but it's just like, I just don't.
It's all sugar.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I don't understand. Like, my social bubble understands the need of eating healthy and then drinking soda. Like, it would never occur to me if I'm hungry to go and order fries and eat Coke with it and then have half of a cheesecake. Okay, I love sweets. Maybe the half of the cheesecake would happen, but just people need, like students especially, you're at an age when you will not get on with eating unhealthy all the time. It's gonna come back to you. It's gonna bite you in your ass. Like, you have to learn about it. And I feel like there should be more focus about this as well, like, generally.
And in line with that, it's okay to tell people that you do not eat certain foods, and you're 1,000% right. I come from a drinking culture, and when I tell people now I don't drink alcohol, I'm called a teetotaler, or I'm called one of these other things. I've heard my own grandfather and father say, I don't trust somebody who doesn't drink. Now, I will be honest with you, I don't drink because of dietary issues. I just had too many issues with alcohol. But it's interesting now that similar to what you've said, now that I've stopped drinking, the stick and the stigmatism that I'm getting just because I don't consume alcohol, which is fascinating.
I grew up in the same environment where people drink all the time. I come from the Czech Republic. We are probably the biggest drinkers of beer in the world, right? So we drink from the age of 14 in high school every weekend. And I'm like, no, I don't drink. And they're like, why have a drink? And they would spend 15 minutes of their time trying to convince me to drink. So I end up having a drink, and then I actually don't enjoy it. It's not health reasons. I just really don't enjoy it.
Well, and let me clarify. I love whiskey, love it, but I can't drink it. And I will be the first case study to tell you, since I have stopped drinking, like, yes, I'm doing renovations at the house. Yes, I'm doing some exercise, but I've lost 36 pounds. I've lost 15 kilograms because my diet hasn't changed much because I have histamine intolerance. So what I can eat is a fraction of what's available anyway. So the only thing that has changed is not consuming alcohol. And I've lost 15 kilograms.
Alcohol is the worst drug that's available and socially acceptable.
And the other, like that too, there's actually research to suggest alcohol doesn't help anybody under the age of 40. It is a poison. It is your brain only has so many cells, and alcohol is killing it.
But there's nothing beneficial to alcohol. You might argue with social aspect of having alcohol, but you can do that without alcohol as well. There's literally no benefit to drinking alcohol.
And that has been one thing that, again, you mentioned, why'd you move to London?
Exactly.
Now there's 0% options that I can have. And so I'm finding that there's more social acceptance because the person that I hang out with most, which all three of you know who that is, smokes, drinks, etc. But it's okay. And again, he finally figured out. But again, at first I was called a teetotaler, but now that we've gone beyond that, they'll be the first person to buy me a 0% beverage.
Yeah, I'd go with lemonade any time of the day.
I can't drink lemons. You got to remember, like, most of the things I can consume is very finite. Anyway, we'll go on to you guys. Tell us, because, again, we need to wrap this up at some point, but what are your diets like now? And it's okay if your diet's not great, because, again, in my undergraduate, it was a yo-yo. Because we didn't figure out my diagnosis. So I was up, down, left, right. At one point, I was 236 pounds. And, a couple summers later, I dropped down to 168. Like, I've been all over. And I have a interesting, similar.
I've had the similar experience as Matthew, because I have a sensitive gut, which means I can't just eat whatever I crave for. So even Ali knows, because whatever he wants to have, I can't have. Whatever I want to have, he can't have. So I cook. I cook a lot. First year, I couldn't cook because I didn't have the right equipment. I only had a pan which you can do everything with. Well, yeah, first year I lost 13 to 14 kgs. But then when I went back home for summer vacation, they were like, okay, you need to have a suitcase with equipments and all the powders you need. So yeah, in my culture, you need to. Basically, the charts comes again. It's actually a pie, and then you need to have this much carbohydrates. You need to have this much fiber. You need to have this much lentils and stuff, and then the meat goes here. So yeah, I still stick with that chart, and then I still go with that. I cook meat, cook veggies, I cook pulses and lentils. So
yeah, so a fairly balanced diet.
Exactly, fairly balanced diet, and then it's all right. I look a bit good now. Healthy, get a bit physically fit. That's the next step. Yeah.
Ali? Exactly. So had a similar experience as well, because where I come from, it is very common that you'd have like breakfast, lunch, dinner, all these 3 meals. But London, it's a big city and it's always rapidly moving. And the thing is, over here, a 1 hour travel is actually considered good time. Over there, where I came from in Dubai, 1 hour travel is like crazy. Like, what the hell are you doing? So it was common. I was living with my grandparents as I first came in, and I was just taking advice from my family. They said that, look, over here in this country, no one has lunch. You just have breakfast, you go straight to dinner because of all the travel time. So me being the idiot I was at that time, I followed their advice. And guess what happened? I lost like 16 kilograms because of that, because I'm a big guy, 6'4", so I need those calories to come in. And because of that, when I realized this, every one of my family back home started seeing it in the pictures. They're like, what's wrong with you? You're looking like a baby giraffe right now. We sent you to London to study. Instead, you're dropping off all these pounds. So then I went to my uncle, said, look, your advice was horrible, so I'm not going to take you on board for that. And no insult to my uncle, because he's a really good guy. He gives me good advice, but that was not good advice, of course. So I went back to that thing and just started eating as I was eating back home. Now, there's one bad effect of that when I'm here at university, and of course, I'm not going to take the name, but there are no healthy cafes around here. Not a single one.
That's not true.
There is?
There's a healthy cafe on the road on Church End. That literally next to the health shop, there's a good cafe. You can get halal breakfast, all of that.
Even for lunch and dinner?
Not dinner. I would get lunch and breakfast there. It's more like a brunch place.
There's a brunch place. It closes early, I'm guessing, though, then.
I'm not sure about that, but there's so many. There's a Korean restaurant. Korean food is not necessarily unhealthy. You have to pick and choose from the menu, but it's not unhealthy. There are choices around here. Trust me, I live here. I know.
Oh, okay.
So there, you two are gonna pick up this conversation out.
Because
so let me ask you then. The last question is if you could ask the next, because we're gonna have another guest on next week. what would you ask them with regards to thriving?
I would ask them that what obstacles have they faced in their life and what actions did they take to get past those obstacles.
Absolutely. I would ask them, like, if I give a scenario to them, what would be their first reaction to that? Will they, try to leave out of the problems and then stay alone? Or would you actually take action in terms of facing it and then, as we said, trying again, failing, succeeding again? That's basically it. I mean, as Susanna said, it's all about the process. Target is first class, add a degree, and you throw stuff above and then you get a good picture. But process is actually the main thing. You have to trust the process.
Cool. Susanna, any last things?
I would ask how exactly these people thrive. I want to know how individuals do it.
Well, you get to ask them because you will be here with me next week. All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Hey there, this is Mark Webster, the head of Adobe Podcast.
And I'm Sam Anderson, the lead designer for Adobe Podcast.
Sam and I thought we'd put together a quick project to help you get started. Our goal is to make it easy for anyone to record, edit, and share spoken audio that sounds great. This could be a podcast, a voiceover, even a short audio ad. We want to help everyone sound like a pro, even if they're not an audio professional. You can record by clicking the red dot below. If you want to record remotely with a guest, just invite someone to join on the top right of your screen.
On the left side, you can upload audio from your computer. We also have a bunch of cool music collections you can use. We did all the hard work of editing them into intros, outros, and backgrounds. Take a listen. You can also add in a placeholder where you can leave a note about what to record or what music to add later.
Over in the Filters panel, you'll find AI that will enhance any speech to sound as if it were recorded in a studio. Toggle it on and off to hear how this recording originally sounded. Once you're done, you can download your finished audio or click share and create a template to let someone else have a copy.
And of course, this is now your file, so feel free to play around with recording your own voice or editing ours. You can cut, copy, and paste just like a Word document.
That's it. Oh, and one last thing. In the share menu, you can send our team feedback. Let us know what you think. We're all ears.